Welcome to our talking points, and today we're going to be talking about tenants. Now, here at the Wealth Masters Club, we focus quite heavily on property investment. And one of the things that scares a lot of investors is, of course, the tenants, because we've all heard those horror stories about the tenants not paying or just some of the horrible things that they have done. So as a property investor, one of the most important decisions you'll make is choosing the right tenant for your rental property. And that is, of course, if you are managing the tenants yourself. So the right tenant can help you maximize your rental income, maintain your property, and ensure a hassle-free rental experience. However, on the other hand, choosing the wrong tenants can also lead to headaches, financial loss, and even legal troubles. So in this video, we're just going to have a little bit of a discussion about the key traits and characteristics of the best kinds of tenants for any property investor. So whether you've been investing for many years or if you're just getting started, this video is going to provide you with some valuable insights to help you make very informed decisions about your rental properties. So let's dive in and learn a little bit more about the best kind of tenants for property investors. And to talk on this point, we are lucky to have the founder of the Wealth Masters Club, Coert Coetzee, with us. So Coert, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Hi, Damien. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, Coert, as an investor yourself, you've done a lot of talks all over the world. What have you found to be some of the biggest problems when it comes to finding and managing your tenants?
Finding the right tenant is obviously the goal, but I made a few mistakes in the past, and I did my own tenant administration for a long time. Well, not a very long time, but for a few years, right in the beginning, back there in the early 90s. It was actually in 1999 around, if I remember correctly, that I appointed letting agents for the first time. And that was the turning point. You see, the thing is finding the right tenant. It's not so easy. You place an ad in those days in the classifieds in the local newspaper, and then you get all kinds applying for it. And as a single person or a single property investor, you do not always have the means to check them out, on credit bureaus, stuff like that, and their bank accounts. So when I appointed letting agents, I actually discovered that some letting agents are worse than bad tenants. So finding the right letting agent, that was the big thing. And eventually I found one. And I learned so much from that letting agent. But unfortunately, that letting agent is not with us anymore, closed business, retired, that kind of thing. But then I knew how to do it. And that is why I started my own letting agency, Destinata Properties. So now they do it exactly the way I want it to be done. And they do it right. And if you do it like that, then you have no problems. But if I can add to that, the screening part of the tenant is the most important part. And that is where people neglect. People will put tenants in units, in their townhouses, that are not qualified for it. They will, for example, I always say on the seminars, don't put family members in your townhouses. That's a big mistake. Or friends, big mistake. And I always said, and people from the church, okay, nothing against the churches, but what I meant with that is not the down and out guys. So it is a business, it's not a charity. And if you get some of these principles right, then you can do it yourself. But still, with the experience that I now have, my biggest mistake was not to use letting agents right from the beginning.
So obviously people tend to go towards the negative of the things they don't know and the things that might scare them. But there's also a lot of good that comes with it. So, you wrote an article last week about the person you called Johnny, who was your perfect tenant. So for those who might not have read the article, could you just give us a little bit more detail about why Johnny was the perfect tenant for you?
Yes, it was there back it was actually in the late 90s that I bought a unit. But anyways, how it worked is I met this person when he advertised actually his townhouse. And so I met him and we started talking about it. And he was very negative about the future of the country those days and so on. And so he believed that South Africa is not a place where you should have property. All those threats those days of taking the land, and taking your assets and so on. So he believed all that rubbish. And well, it benefited me, so I bought the property because I see a big future in this country. Right, and then he stayed on as my tenant. How nice is that? But the point at that stage that I really want to emphasize is I bought this unit with zero money from myself. It was 100% bond. Those days, the banks gave us 100% mortgage. So I got 100% mortgage, and the rent that he paid me was more than my bond repayment every month. So I bought that property with the bank's money, and Johnny paid me. And he paid me more, actually, than what I had to pay on a mortgage. So I had a positive cash flow. Okay, nowadays it's difficult. The banks are not giving 100% bonds anymore, things like that. But the point is rather that I want to make here is that Johnny could have done the same. Instead of selling the unit, he could have put a tenant in, and he could have had the same returns. But where is he then going? So it's actually amazing. People don't want to own property in this country or assets, but they stay in the country. I can understand if they immigrate and then they sell their properties before they immigrate. But to stay on, that's actually ridiculous. But anyways, Johnny stayed. It was a 1-bedroom unit. Eventually, he got married, and they had a kid. And then they asked if I can help them with a bigger unit. I said yes. In the same complex, I had one available, so they rented a 2-bedroom from me. And then years later, when they had more kids, and they rented a 3-bedroom in a different complex in a security estate, actually. They rented one of my 3-bedroom units. And that is where they still are, in that estate. So I spoke to them the other day because we are growing old together, Johnny and I. And I said to him, when you're ready to move to a retirement estate, you should just tell me. And he said, yes, it's nearly there. By the end of the year, he will start talking to me about a retirement unit. So I said, no problem. I have one in a retirement estate there nearby. So yes, so Johnny is going to live with me, one of my units, paying me every month for it till he dies.
Amazing. I suppose we all wanted Johnny if we become investors.
Yes. Okay, it's not always like that, but this is the perfect example of what could have been. It's actually the difference between fear and fearlessness. I like to call myself fearless. And Johnny was afraid of the future of the country. And here we are still in the country. Nobody took any houses, nothing. Maybe they tried, but that is the beauty of having a good letting agent. It's very difficult for people to come and hijack our units. We are in security complexes, and we can control situations like that. I really recommend that people should not buy outside of a security complex or a security estate. If you do that, then you're stupid. So the reality is crime is a problem. So that is all over the world. It's not just in South Africa. So even if I buy in another country, it will definitely always be in a security complex.
And you mentioned about the trainings and stuff that you do and the seminars that you give. You always use the analogy of the caretaker, in which you highlight the importance of who the caretaker is. So for those who might not have watched it or seen one of your talks before, can you just give us a little bit more information about who is that caretaker and how that helps you as an investor?
Yeah, it's like a riddle. So I always present it on the seminars as a riddle. And I say, right, guess, let's see who can guess first who this person is. This is a person, he is taking care of my townhouse. When the garden needs fixing, then he will fix the garden. When it's necessary to replace the bulbs, electricity bulbs, then he will do that. If there's a problem with the water system, he will report it to me and I can get a plumber, and then he will actually supervise while the plumber is working there, make sure he will stand by and see that it's a proper job. He will report back to me afterwards and telling me whether it was a good job or not. And if not, then we will get the same plumber again and to come and fix the problem if it is after a month the same problem. And so on. And he even paints the place from time to time. And sometimes he asks me if I will compensate him for the paint. And then I say, yes, no problem. But he's never charging me for the labor. And so, yes, he's a wonderful person to have. And the beauty of all is he is paying the mortgage of the property. Okay, by that time, everybody in the room knows it is a tenant. No, that is, you see, I think the biggest problem with South Africans, and I think not just South Africans, all over the world, the biggest problem why people are not all people are not becoming property investors is the tenant. People are afraid of that. There are so many horror stories. You can imagine in the newspapers, you will never read an article about this riddle that I just shared with you, this fantastic tenant that is taking care of my place and all those things. You'll never read stories like that. You always read the stories of the bad ones, the ones who are not paying, the ones that you battle to get out of the unit and all those things, and the cost that people had to do it. And but you should never forget that the newspapers are owned and controlled by the insurance companies. So therefore, they don't like good stories about properties. They want people to buy endowment policies, pension plans, and all that rubbish. That's rubbish. That's what they want them to buy. Amazingly, the money that they get on the endowment policies and the insurance companies now, the money that they get on the endowment policies and the pension plans and so on, they use that capital to buy property. So they buy property, but they don't want their clients to buy property as a business, as an investment. So yes, the whole idea for me about property is get rid of that tenant illusion or a nightmare. It is not true. Most people, most tenants, by far most tenants, I would say like 99% of tenants are good paying tenants. If that is not your experience and 99% of your tenants are good, it's because you are doing it wrong. Don't do it yourself. Get experts to do it. Get my experts to do it. Destinata Properties can do it for you. And then you won't have problems. Okay, no, nothing is guaranteed ever, but that is the 1%. And then it is easy to manage that 1%. Very easy. We can sort a non-paying tenant out, chop, very fast. We have the experience. We do get it from time to time, of course. And but first we try to solve the problem in a nice way. If not, we can do it in a bad way also. Not bad for us, bad for the tenant. Yes, I'm getting carried away.
No, it's good. We love the stories, but I think let's just talk a little bit more now on this point of the managing agent. So obviously at the Wealth Masters Club, we focus heavily on buying property, gearing them, and increasing the portfolio. I mean, you've even got clients who have in the first year bought 100 properties. So as a person like yourself who's been investing for many years, what are the sort of important things that you want to look for when you are looking at a managing agent? Or what are the sort of key fundamentals that you as an investor want to look at on their behalf?
You see, those days before I had Destinata Properties as my managing agent, which is one of our companies in our group, which are actually doing it exactly like we want them to do it. Before that, when I appointed a letting agent, I always interviewed them. And in the interview, I would ask them simple questions like, what would you do if the rent is not paid on the first of the month? And if they give me the wrong answer there, then I won't even talk to them further. And the wrong answer would be, we will send him a letter. Or they might say, we will give them till the 7th. Okay, what will you do then by the 7th? If they then say, then we will get the attorneys to send him a letter, that's the wrong answer. So eventually I found a letting agent. That was long before I had my own agency, and I found a letting agent in Pretoria that gave me the perfect answers every time. First of all, I said to him, what if the rent is not paid on the 1st of the month? He said, then we will start chasing him with phone calls. We'll call him. And I said, and then? If it is still not paid, they said, then we will give them till the 3rd. He said, normally they promise that they will pay the rent. Please, just give me a few more days. They will pay the rent. So then we'll give them till the 3rd. And I said, and then what happens then on the 3rd? He said, that's when we go out there and we disconnect the electricity. And I said, but really? You do that? And do they then pay? I said, no, not always. But remember, that was now in Pretoria, and it was those days I had an apartment block in Arcadia in Pretoria. And it was actually for that apartment block that I wanted a letting agent. And he said, no, they reconnect the electricity themselves. They lay cables from the flat next door and that kind of thing. So, oh, my word, that's not going to work. I said, what do you do then? He said, then we talk to them and we'll give them a final deadline of 7 days. So if it is not paid on the 7th of the month, he said, then we will go out there and we will load the furniture. So what? Load the furniture? But that's illegal, I said to them. He said, yes, maybe, but it's very effective. So he said, that's my kind of letting agent. No, my letting agents are not doing things like that. Because we discovered that if you do it right in the beginning, you don't have to do these nasty things later. But it's comforting to know that we can do the nasty things. We can do it too. My letting agency can do it too. But it's very, very seldom that something drastic like that will even be necessary, because we do our screening properly. We check the tenant profile network. If he defaulted ever, we check his ID, his criminal record, his bank status, his proof of income, all those things. So if that is done correctly, then you won't have problems. So find a letting agent who can do all these things that I just mentioned. Screening, proper screening. That is actually the right answer.
So I think it all begins getting it right from the beginning, and then you don't have those issues. But then, Coert, just the last question I've got is, as an investor yourself, what is your parting advice for anyone who has the desire to start an investment portfolio in terms of property, but just hasn't taken that first step yet? What would you say to them? What is that first step that they need to do?
Well, the first step is obviously to make sure you have the right, you can afford it. Because now the banks are charging like a 20% deposit, although there are first-time buyers who can still get 100% a mortgage. So go for that, but keep in mind that it's not like in the old days where the rent was more than the bond repayment. We found that that is not the case anymore. The rent is not high enough. And it is not that the rent did not increase. The nice thing about rent is it increases with inflation every year, more or less. But unfortunately, interest rates can go higher. And the higher the interest rate, the higher the shortfall will be, if you have a shortfall. It's not always that you have a shortfall, depending on how much deposit you give, and so on and so on. That it all depends. As you know yourself, Damien, you bought in a complex the other day, in a brand new complex, and there was no shortfall on your bond repayment, if I remember correctly. And so sometimes you get it right. So maybe that is also something to consider, is to rather work with Destinata Properties again. Sorry that I pump the company now all the time, but you bought it at one of Destinata Properties, that unit of yours, you bought it through Destinata Properties. And you see, they present the right properties for us. They know what we want. That is the problem with estate agents again, is they just want to do the sale. They are not so much concerned about your investment goals for the long term and all those things. They just want to do the sale. Well, Destinata Properties will make sure it is the right kind of sale. It is something that fits in with your long-term plans. Because your long-term plans, if you're a member of our club, then your long-term plans are known to us. We know what it is, because we only buy with trusts. So we will set up the trust for you. Destinata Property will give you time to set up your trust, and then they will help you with the property. While the other agents will tell you, no, don't buy in a trust. Buy in your personal name is better. It's easier to get financing. All that. It's all rubbish. It's all nonsense. That is just to get the deal done as soon as possible. So that is actually the proof that they don't care about your future and how you do it. If you buy with a trust and eventually you start making a profit, like, for example, that property where Johnny is my tenant in it, that property is in a trust. I make profit on that property already for the last 20 years already. Well, actually earlier, actually from the beginning that I had positive cash flow. But point that I want to make here is, when you get to that point where you make profit on your property, then with the trust, that profit can be 100% actually, the way we do it. And it's legal, everything's legal. But people just jump in without doing their homework, without doing their long-term projections and calculations. And those are the things that our accountants will do for you. So maybe joining the club is the first step to becoming a property investor. Join the Wealth Masters Club. Have a consultation. Consultations are free if you join a club. And then they can help you even to determine your goals and to put it in figures and rands and cents. And then you know exactly where you're going. Then you will know when to buy, what to buy, how to buy, and how to determine whether you can afford it or not. We will help you with all those things.
Fantastic. Coert, thank you so much. And for you at home, thank you for watching this video. And if you enjoyed it, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and we will keep bringing you more and more valuable content. Now, also want to let you know, Coert did mention that he has done seminars and training before. So we are at the moment offering a free training for anybody who is interested in learning on how to become a successful investor. The training covers a wide range of topics from the basic investment strategies to more advanced techniques. And this is designed to help you achieve those financial goals as a property investor. So if you are interested in taking your financial game to the next level, we encourage you to check out the free training. The description has all the links there for you. So just go subscribe and register, and we will send you all the information. That's it for today. Coert, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, Damien.